Splendid afternoon, it is to viewers. Welcome to Special Focus on Equity Access, your aerial perspective of stock market developments and of developments in the Zimbabwean economy. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Now, on the table this afternoon is a look at a most recent update given by government to the effect that government is doing away with a multi-currency regime. To discuss these and other issues, I'm joined in set by economist to my left, Tinashe Kaduo. Tinashe, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ivan. Good afternoon.
Splendid. Now, also to my right is Chief Analyst, Respect Gwenzi. Respect, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ivan. It's always my pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritties or the ramifications of such a policy development by government, we just want to have a walk down memory lane to look at where it is that Zimbabwe is coming from a policy perspective, as well as what we've actually seen playing out on a monetary ground. Then after that, we then get into the nitty-gritties thereof. 2008, we see Zimbabwe facing hyperinflation. 2009, government introduces a multi-currency regime anchored upon the United States dollar. Between 2010 and 2012, there is confidence across the board, resulting in significant economic growth. 2013, we see the emergence of a budget deficit across the board. Then in 2014, that budget deficit continues to widen as government now gets into borrowing from the domestic market. 2016, bond notes and coins are introduced on the pretext of export incentives. Between 2016 and 2018, we see a cash worsening situation across the economy, which then sees the result, which then sees a deficit where the supply of US dollars are concerned. Now, in October of 2018, if you recall, gentlemen, we see the separation of the FCA Nostro from the RTGS balances. 2019 February, we see the liberalization of the intermarket rate, as we see the coming in of that system there to bring a balance across the economy. Then 2019, we see a further liberalization of that exchange rate between the RTGS dollar and the bond. Now, President E.D. Mnangagwa also issues a statement just recently indicating that we will be doing away with the US dollar and have our own currency in that regard. Now, let's just have a quick look at that clip. When we come back, we then break down what the implication of this really is on the ground. Let's have a look.
Saka hazvigoni kuti nyika yebudirire kuinda mberi ine mari yedzimwe nyika isina mari yayo. Mari yedzimwe nyika inogadzikwa nenyika idzodzo. Imi munongoiwana nokunge matengesa zvinhu zvenyu kunze kwenyika, mobhadharwa nemari dzokunze kwenyika. Kana vane hama neshamwari dziri mudiaspora vanotumira mari idzodzo, and so on and so on. My investments paanovuya achibva kunze, vanovuya vane mari yekunze ikoko. Asi senyika tinosungirwa kuva nemari yedu. Saka rwendo iroro tarutanga.
Was President E.D. Mnangagwa issuing that statement there? Now, gentlemen, what is the implication of this statement? Was it an indicator of some sort? I'll start with you, Tinashe.
Yeah, if you actually look at the president's statement, it was, actually more of a warning or a statement of intent where he's saying, no, we should have, our own currency. Yes, there is much, we had accepted as an economy that, this multi-currency thing is no longer sustainable and we need, a currency of some sort. The multi-currency, especially the dollar, was viewed by business and most economic agents to be, too strong for businesses. So there was, that consensus in the market that continued trading in the US dollar and other multi-currencies is no longer sustainable. But it's an issue which is debatable. But some economic agents, they actually prefer the US dollar and other forms of foreign currency, where some economic agents as well, they prefer the local currency. So if you look at what has been actually happening in the economy, especially in 2019, we have seen an economy which had now divided into two. The other part was transacting more in local currency than the other section in US dollars. The other part that I'm saying was more in local currency was more of your labor market. If you look at most of your labor markets, the majority of it, the salaries, the wages, they are all in local currency. Then you look at the goods market, where you want to purchase, the market had dollarized. So there was no sanity in those markets, and an intervention in some sort was highly needed.
Right. Now, as at this point, now we see government stepping in there to do away with the multi-currency regime effective today, the 24th of June 2019. What is the implication of such a move where government is concerned?
I think before I talk about the implication, I think I'm particularly interested in trying to look at the background to inform what could have possibly driven us to this end.
Sure, go ahead.
What has inspired government to come up with this. So there is definitely, as the president has alluded to, there's definitely been some carnage in the market, particularly in the markets, in the forex market, and this has cascaded down to the retail market as well, where you find prices just closely tracking the foreign currency exchange rates, and therefore government had to devise a way of trying to moderate the pressures that are ongoing in the market. And one of the instruments they could use outside, I mean, they couldn't do so in a multi-currency regime, and they had to obviously first do away with the multi-currency regime in order to try to stabilize both the exchange rate and inflationary pressures. How effective the measures can be, it's dependent on its ability to use the tools that at their disposal quite well. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that we do not have as much liquidity in terms of I mean, government on its own having liquidity mainly to sterilize the market. I think that's one of the key factors that can possibly push the rate lower. If you are to use other instruments such as long-term paper, I think the implication still remains that it definitely increases the nation's burden, but of course it defers it to a later stage. But what we need right now is something that don't necessarily increase our debt levels. And so once you increase your debt levels in the short term, it might also have an impact on the money supply, and you may fail to contain inflation. So I think this instrument is designed to cushion further price increases, and obviously as well further growth, especially in the exchange rate, by forcing players to I could say sit their money in hard currency onto the market for transactional purposes. So we'll only find USD being used by participants only as a store of value, but within the body of the exporters, mainly the exporters on the exporter side. But for transaction purposes, I mean, it would relieve a significant pressure that has been accumulating, especially on the RTGS side.
No, but this has been quite a swift adjustment. I mean, we're just coming from the bond note, then we have the RTGS introduced as our currency, and at this point we are just being told that, look, we could be heading into another currency altogether. What does this mean in terms of investor confidence as we try to navigate these waters?
Maybe for a bit more clarity there, what's being done, we are not actually introducing a new currency per se. It's actually your bond note and your RTGS balances and your EcoCash that are just being renamed into a new name, the Zimbabwean dollar.
Semantics.
Yes, it's just a semantics. to me, I can just say it's more like a currency rebranding exercise. Nothing has changed. We have just renamed your electronic balances into Zimbabwean dollar. So to say, really, the policy. It's something that we might see, some serious implications in the immediate term. Yes, of course, there might be panic that the government is now introducing a currency of some sort. But I believe that if the government doesn't expand the money supply, that we have actually seen it from before. I think from October 2018, there wasn't much growth in terms of money supply. That's why we have seen even the interbank rate, it had stabilized at around 6 for much of a certain period. So I think really the conditions, yes, I think they are now there to support, a local unity and, relieve, pressure in terms of the US dollar on local transactions.
I realize. Now, in simple terms, what are we saying and what does this mean for the ordinary citizen in Zimbabwe?
I think there are quite a number of factors that come to play. You can no longer do your transactions in any currency outside of the local currency. So if you have a forex, if you're holding forex, you have to liquidate it into the local currency via the banking channels in order for you to utilize in your day-to-day transactions. Taxation purposes, they will be accounted for in RTGS dollar terms or in ZW. What do you call it, the Zim dollar currency terms, and there are quite a number of implicants, but the baseline is that you can no longer transact legally in Zim outside of the local currency. You can no longer use part of the multi-currency basket in transacting. It obviously has got its own implications. Immediately the market will panic. There will be players also who try to dodge. In fact, the economy is highly informal, and therefore we expect as well that there might be a continued trade in US dollars, but outside of the formal channels. But for those businesses which are in the formal space, it's very hard. In fact, they won't be able to dodge the new regulation. But broadly, it simply means you can no longer trade using any currency outside of the local currency.
If I held an FCA Nostro balance, what's going to happen to it? Do I withdraw my US dollars raw, then I make a plan, or automatically this means that I then get RTGS balances at the interbank market rate? What's going to happen, Tinashe?
I think the law there, I think it's a bit clear that any other form of currency, it's no longer illegal tender in the country. So if you have got your US dollar deposits, obviously you have to approach an authorized dealer, then they'll be converted into a local currency, which is your Zim dollar, for you to do your local transactions.
So I'm not getting the US dollar, I'm getting the RTGS balances instead.
Yes, your RTGS balances.
I think it gets us to more of an El Colarito situation, except for the fact that it's not coming at a certain rate.
Yeah.
If you look at the Argentinian, the way it was done out there, it had a certain level, a certain rate which you were asked to seed your money at. But right now we could say possibly it's the interbank rate.
Right.
But although the interbank rate is not clearly reflective of what other market players who are on the supply side would deem fit. So I think it's more or less something in the same category. But then there are some free funds. I think for monies that are being sent via remittances, I would like to inquire more. But I think those that may qualify as free funds. So free funds.
But even if they are free funds, but I really think if you read that statement, it's clear that there is no shop that you will go with your US dollar
Yes.
if you do a purchase. So how would you be withdrawing your US dollars when you can't transact them locally? So it means legally you are not allowed to be seen with US dollars unless you want to transact outside the country, or maybe you're an exporter, you have some foreign obligations that you want to take care of. But in terms of some of the implications, you pointed some of them. But on the negative side, introducing a currency, especially in an economy which is more structurally dysfunctional,
Yes.
I think it's something that is actually a source of risk. We have to probe ourselves. What is it that actually resulted in us dollarizing? Did we solve those pressures that had forced us to dollarize? You look at inflation, it's now approaching the 2007 levels, those dreaded levels. So if you look at it, and you also looking at an economy where we are technically in a recession. So those are some of those issues that I was saying, okay, in terms of timing, was it right? Then you also look in terms of the fundamentals that supports a currency. Whenever you introduce a local currency, the first 3, 4, 5 months it will be under attack, and you need, to be prepared as the central bank to defend it, such that the people will remain confident in that currency. So what we may see here is, if you can't force a currency on individuals, the market might reject it. And you see, it will also happen like what we did, in 2008, 2009. Yes. It's not the authorities who introduced the US dollar.
Yeah.
It's the market which actually, rejected the Zim dollar, and they adopted, the US dollar. So that's my fear, that, we might be headed there. Because looking at the past 3 weeks or 4, we actually technically dollarized.
I think I support what Nash is saying. What brought us to